If you go down the FX30 rabbit hole, you will already find a ton of tutorials that talk about the specs that this camera has to offer. What I want to talk about are the things that are important to a filmmaker that is starting out, people like you and I. So this is going to be a very quick review. If you stick till the end, I promise though that I'll tell you 2 reasons why this camera is not for me. Let's start as always with image quality. The FX30 might look and feel just like the FX3, but unlike its bigger and more expensive brother, this one houses an APS-C sensor, which is fine. A lot of cinema cameras have Super 35 sensor, just like my favorite camera, the Canon C70. The images that you get with this camera is downsampled from its 6K sensor, much like the A7 IV, which is downsampling from a 7K sensor. Now the question is, do you see a difference between the two? I've looked at the images and I don't see a difference. And if you're really shooting these videos to be uploaded to YouTube, then it does not matter anyways. Now this camera, just like the A7 IV and the FX3, records at 10-bit 422. And you have the option to record RAW if you have an external recorder or an external monitor like the Ninja 5. But if you don't have access to a Ninja 5 or an external recorder, then your best bet would be XAVC All-I. But please do keep in mind that the file size would be on the heavier side and you can only shoot up to 50 frames per second. If you want to shoot at 120 frames per second, then you have to change the file format to a lower bit format. Now you also have the option to shoot one single shot images with this camera. I'm not sure why a feature like this is available with this camera or even with the FX3 in the first place. You don't get a camera like this to do photography, and this is not a feature that I would be using when I'm using a camera like the FX30. So let's just skip this one and move on to the next chapter, which is image stabilization. Now with this camera you get 5-axis in-body stabilization, and it comes in 2 modes just like with the A7 IV, the standard mode and the active mode. I have used this camera only on the standard mode for the most part, because with the active mode you get a 1.5x crop. Now on both modes, the images that I got from this camera was smooth even when most of the test shoot that I was doing were done handheld. Now let's talk about autofocus. It's really hard to compare the autofocus between the cameras in this category and above, and the FX30 does an amazing job in keeping the focus on my eye when the camera was on a locked-in position on a tripod like right now, or when I was doing handheld shoots. It even did an amazing job when it was set to focus on the non-human members of the crew. Now let's talk about low light performance. Since the FX30 is downsampling images from a 6K sensor, you can expect to have a much more pleasing noise profile, but only up to 50 frames per second. If you're shooting at 120 frames per second, it's not downsampling anymore, which means you can expect to have a much more noisier image along with 1.5x crop factor. But other than that, the images at 120 frames per second look really smooth. Now when you're using Cine Ei, an option that comes with this camera, it only gives you the option to switch between 2 base ISOs, the 800 and 2400, which I found unexpectedly freeing because I don't have to constantly worry about my ISO setting anymore. Now the question is, would I continue using Cine Ei? I don't know. I have to get used to only having 2 ISO settings available to me. I'll let you know as I use this camera more often. Now let's talk about accessories. You have dual SD cards with this camera. You don't have an SDI output, but you do have full HDMI. Now if you don't have the top handle, then you don't have any XLR input. You can use the 3.5mm audio input, or you can use the MI shoe on top for wireless audio systems. As with any modern camera, you have a fully articulating LCD screen. It's bright enough and the colors are good enough to be used in most scenarios. But if I'm on a client shoot, I would prefer to use an external monitor to be sure of my focus and the image that I'm getting. In conclusion, given its price tag of $1,800 without the top handle, this is a solid camera for anybody who's starting out on their filmmaking journey. And the colors that you get from this camera is good, as you can expect from any Sony camera in this category, and it performs fairly well in low light conditions as well. The question is, would I get this camera for myself? And the answer is no, and not because this is a bad camera. Before I tell you the 2 reasons why I would not get this camera, if you think the lights today look really cool, it's because of my man Danilla, who is a really fantastic gaffer who set up everything. And please don't expect the lights to look this good on every YouTube video, because I don't think I have what it takes to do a setup like this. I would really like if my bro would come on the camera and say hi to all of you. Just come here 1 second and just say hi. Show your beautiful fucking face. Hey, now get out. Now let's talk about the 2 reasons why I would not get this camera. Reason 1 would be the APS-C sensor. Now, if I want to use a camera with a Super 35 sensor, I would rather use the Canon C70. I don't own the Canon C70, but I can always rent it. And with that camera, I don't have to compromise on a cropped or a noisy 120 frames per second. And if I'm not using the C70, I would rather use a full frame camera. It's a personal choice. I've just come to love the full frame look. Now, don't get me wrong, any images that I get with the full frame camera, you can knock out of the park with a camera like the FX30. So don't let my personal choice discourage you. Now, the second reason of not getting this camera would be I would rather save for the A7 IV. It's only a $690 difference. And it's again a personal choice. I would rather like to have a hybrid camera because I like to do a bit of photography these days, and I like to have a camera that does deliver high quality images as well as videos. Now, if you're somebody who is only into filming and videography, then this is a perfect camera for you. I don't know if you stack the images from the FX30 or the FX3 and the Sony A7 IV. As far as video is concerned, I don't think you would really see a difference if you are not looking under the microscope. Now, so this camera for somebody who's just starting out on their journey is absolutely perfect. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have watched till the end, then you're awesome. Please do consider liking and then subscribing to this channel, or you can subscribe and then like. But then please consider supporting this channel. It gives me the courage to keep on doing videos like this one. I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you again for watching. Bye.